Welcome back to another episode of Wajoud, a storytelling project launched by the Arab American Heritage Council, where we tell the stories of the Arab and Mina community in Flint and across the state of Michigan. In this episode, I'm joined by my friend, Ammar Mohamed, a Flint native who is now working in the film industry and based in Los Angeles, California. When we first met in undergrad, Ammar helped encourage and inspire my own appreciation for film. He's always had a gift for seeing the beauty in people, what moves them, what inspires them, and the stories that shape them. In our conversation today, we talk about his story, growing up in Flint, navigating the pressure to pursue a more traditional career path, and how a chance encounter with a major figure in the film world helped him get his foot in the door. We also talk about the inspiration he continues to find in community, and the advice he has for others pursuing creative paths. As you'll notice throughout the interview, this was such a fun episode to record, an opportunity to catch up with a really good friend. And in our world today, when cynicism and despair feel really hard to shake, conversations like this offer me a little more light and a little more hope. I hope this one does the same for you. Here's my conversation with Ammar Mohamed.
Good, it feels good, man. I haven't been in this kiva in years. Feels weird. I feel like all my friends are supposed to be in like the crowd.
Yeah. What are your feelings coming back to campus today?
I haven't been on campus in it's been a long time. I couldn't tell you the last time. Like I actually walked into the buildings here. So it feels good.
Any special memories in this room?
There was an event, and I can't remember what the event was, but I remember my boy Jadad, who you remember Jadad, right?
Maybe.
Jadad, a Sudani dude. He stayed here for a year, and then he went to Ann Arbor. But I grew up with him in Flint, and crazy, he just had a baby the other day too. So shout out Jadad. But there was an event here, and for some reason, all I remember is I was sitting on a he had this drum box. It was like a drum that you sit on the top of it and you play like through your legs basically. And for some reason he was rapping. And we were sitting in front of like a crowd in this auditorium, and I was like dropping a beat, and he was rapping. But that's like that's one of my like fondest memories in this building.
Yeah, let's bring it back a little bit. So in the spirit of talking about Flint and community, tell us about yourself. Tell us about your story a little bit.
My story is so I'm born and raised in Flint. I was born in Hurley Hospital down the street. My parents are both immigrants from Sudan, which is in East Africa. They moved here on July 4th, 1993. I was born in May of '94, and I had two older sisters who were born overseas. I think both in the United Arab Emirates, maybe one in Saudi, I can't remember. And then me and my two younger sisters were all born here in Hurley. And I've been here my whole life, I went to Carmen Ainsworth Middle School, Carmen Ainsworth High School. I went to U of M Flint. Me and all my sisters actually all went to Carmen Ainsworth High School and all went to U of M Flint, all five of us. And yeah, that's kind of my story. I grew up here, like I had a very nice upbringing, like relatively speaking. No major complaints, I had fun. I had a lot of fun in Flint. Yeah. And a lot of friends that, till this day, like are very close friends of mine. And that's kind of my background. Both the last two movies I did with Ryan, both of them, like the only thing on my mind by the end of it, like when we were finishing, was like, man, when the fuck can I go back to Flint? You know what I mean? Like when can I go back home? And because it's like this place is just a reminder of like anything that. Not anything that's important to me, but a lot of what's important to me started here and is still here. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I love coming back.
Can you say more on that? Like the influences in your life here?
Yeah, like just like Flint is small. I think probably since the water crisis, like it's gained like this bigger name. So it's a small city, and everybody kind of knows everybody, or like is like a degree or two removed from knowing like somebody. And so I felt like I grew up, like just around like everywhere I went in Flint, felt like I was around like family members. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And the crazy part is I don't have any cousins or like extended family that live here. It's just my parents and my sisters. And I think everybody here in Flint filled in those extended family gaps.
Yeah.
Like there's a bunch of uncles that aren't actually my uncles, a bunch of aunties that are not my aunties, and a bunch of cousins that aren't my cousins that I forcefully adopted. You know what I mean? And I think because of that, like it'll always feel like I'm coming home, and like there's no shortage of people here. Every time I come back, there's like some combination of people where I'm like, okay, like we're gonna hang out, we're gonna do things.
Yeah.
There's a million people to see here. And so I feel like I created this like extended family, or it was created for me. And yeah, so when I come back, that's just like the feeling. Because like where I live is like very foreign to me, like in California, and for a long time the culture, if you will, or like just all of it, like being there and doing the work that I was doing was very foreign and very like, I don't know, like not to be dramatic, but it was like there was parts that were like frightening in the beginning where I was just like, man, I don't know about this place, I don't know about this. You know, it felt very overwhelming, and I felt very out of place for a long time where I was just like, I don't know if I'm gonna survive this. Like this might not be for me. But every time I come home, it's like a reminder that like, yeah, it's all good.
So I imagine moving to California, it was sort of like having to start from the beginning of finding your people.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah. Moving there was like, I didn't want to move there. Like, I had a lot of anxiety about it. And, you know, I did it, and the first 6 months was very rocky. But I figured it out over time. And like what Flint gives me is like the thing that I always tell myself now is like when I'm on the job and I'm doing stuff, obviously I care deeply about my job and like the work that I do. But sometimes I have to make decisions that can come with consequences when I'm on this job. And like my mindset for the last like year has been like the worst thing that can happen to me is they kick me out and I get to come back to Flint and hang out with all my homies and family, you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, every time I come home, like I've been home this whole week and I'm like, yeah, like what's the worst that could happen? They send me back here? Like, great. You know what I mean? I'm having the time of my life.
You don't want to leave.
Yeah, I never want to leave when I come, you know? So yeah, that's kind of the vibe for me with Flint. Like it's just it's the place on earth that I know the best. Mm-hmm. Like I know this place like the back of my hand. I know the people. I know the mannerisms, like the way the city moves, like what certain things mean, what certain things don't mean. Like you just, like after so long being somewhere, you just understand it in a way that you're just not gonna understand other cities. Yeah. And so there's like a comfort there, like when I come back to Flint.
For sure, yeah. When you think about this creative trajectory, that you're on now, and do you find that Flint is the launching pad for that?
Yeah, for sure. Like Flint is like everything. It has everything to do with like who I am as a person and like where I'm at and where I'm going. I think Flint is like the biggest influence in that. And then obviously like the people in Flint. And I had a very interesting upbringing because I would, like when I was like in middle school, for example, like I would go home and my mom would be playing like Arabic music and watching like Egyptian soap operas, and then like my older sisters would be listening to like hip hop and R&B, and then I would go to school and somebody would be listening to something else, you know what I mean? And I was constantly stuck in this like whirlwind of like picking things up from here, picking things up from there, and like figuring out what I like and what I don't like. And that stuff has like influenced so much of like, I think like artistically, like my taste, number one, but also like what, I guess when I think about like the feeling that some of these songs and movies give to like my mom, for example, or to like my older sisters when I was growing up, like I think that informs a lot of like what I want to do and how I want people, like the reactions I want to get out of people from like the work that I do is like very much, like my mom is probably sitting at the house right now. What time is it? 2:30? My mom's probably sitting at the house still on the couch with her iPad open, listening to like the same Sudanese music that she listens to every morning and afternoon, and she just sits there and cycles through it. You know what I mean? And it's like to the point where like I have a 2-year-old nephew, and every time we get on FaceTime with him, like he's like yelling at my mom trying to get her to play this one Sudanese song that he knows. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like that's just my mom. She's always been like that. She's playing her music, blasting it through the house, and she's like on the TV watching whatever she wants to watch. And it's like you can either get with her or you could get lost. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so yeah, a lot of that stuff like informs my taste and kind of like the things that I want to make. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, so thinking about your college years, right? You were here, you were a student here in undergrad. What was your major at the time? Wasn't it bio?
Yeah, I was double majoring in bio and psych.
Yeah.
Which were not like I didn't have. I mean, I don't know. There's like a little bit of revisionist history probably that I tell myself, but like I'll probably tell people now that I never wanted to do it. But the truth is, like my dad when I was finishing high school, he basically was like, yeah, you can do whatever you want. He's like, just don't come to me after 4 years and tell me that like, hey man, I don't want to do this anymore. Which is exactly what happened. You know what I mean? So I picked what I wanted to study because the things that I was actually interested in, I didn't see them as like a possibility. Yeah. I didn't know anybody that worked in film. I didn't know anybody that worked in music. I didn't know all the people I knew were like STEM people. You know what I mean? Like,
so this appreciation for film and music started young then.
It started very young, and it started primarily through my mom.
Gotcha.
My mom is the first person to like, because my dad's not much of a movies or music guy. Yeah. It started primarily through my mom listening to old Arabic music and watching old like Egyptian soap operas and movies and stuff like that. And then the next influence is my 2 older sisters, who like I was listening to anything they listened to. Yeah. Like early 2000s R&B, hip hop. Yeah. Like I was jacking anything they were listening to. Anytime they bought a CD, anytime like whatever they were listening to, I was into it.
So then this love and appreciation was something that you were still thinking about through college too. You were 100%. Just
when I was in college, I was actively doing things that were against what I was studying. Like I would do the coursework for like my classes, but then like I would go out on the weekends and I would try to find like musicians and filmmakers and people that were like doing interesting stuff, and I would try to just like be like a fly on the wall. You know what I'm saying? When I was a senior in high school, we had a class called C Squared, and C Squared was basically like it was a class. It was a 6-person class, so it was tiny. But our objective in that class was to put out an episode of basically like of like news and current events for our high school. And every 2 weeks, every like other Friday, they would project it in all the classrooms. And so our job was like every 2 weeks we would just run around with a camera, and we would get footage of like sporting events, school dances, extracurricular activities, whatever was happening on campus. And we would take it, and then we would like also make up like skits and segments. Mm-hmm. And we would go like film all this stuff, and we would go in this editing room and we just make episodes every 2 weeks. And like that was like the most fun I had in high school. Was like that class. It was me, it was my homie Jalal, who we talked about earlier. He was like the technical wizard. He would like cut the episodes, and he would like do like like all the technical stuff we needed. And then me and him would like write skits, and we would write stuff, and then we had a bunch of other people who felt like everybody was doing something miscellaneous. We were all like, everybody was just plug and pop. But those episodes were just so fun. Like we thought we were making like, you know what I mean? You could have told us we were making like TV for HBO at that point. Like we were, and they just gave me a camera, and they were like, yeah, you guys do what you want with it. And we would go everywhere, and we just tape random stuff. And so it's like even that was like something that was like, oh man, like I would love to do this. But I left that class, came to college, and it was just like, yeah, I don't really know like what to do with that.
Yeah. Well, I'm even thinking now about how you were giving me motivation in a time when you needed motivation, to figure out how to get yourself to the next opportunity where you wanted to be.
You know what's crazy? While I was in U of M Flint though, I was never worried about like in those 4 years, like if I just remove those from either side of my life, like I was not worried when I was here. Like I was always like, I was cool with the setup. Mm-hmm. I liked it. I didn't like school, but I liked the social aspect. Like U of M Flint felt like high school on steroids. Like it was all of a sudden it was like, here's a lot of the same people I went to high school with, but now we're in like this campus that has far less rules and nobody's chasing you down the fucking hallway telling you to go to class and you're trying to give you a tardy slip. Like, it's like, yo, you paying for this. You don't want to show up, that's on you, right? So there was this freedom that was like refreshing. And while I was here in those 4 years, I never, like, sure, I had like thoughts here and there about like what I want to do and where do I want to go. And it really didn't hit me until I graduated or as I was like approaching graduation. But outside of that, man, I was just having fun. I was like, I like this social setup. I would come to campus and it's like, you just never know who you're going to run into. You know, and some people hanging out in the U Center, some people is in the rec center, and you just like run around this place like it was Disney World. You know what I mean? Like try to find your friends. And so, yeah, in the 4 years, I enjoyed it. Like I just had fun. I wasn't thinking, I didn't feel this sense of like pressure until the end. Until like, oh, like, what am I going to do? And how am I going to tell my dad that I absolutely do not want to do like medicine or anything like remotely close to medicine. That became a thing. But while I was here, and I think that's why I love this place so much, is because I never let it be like, and it never felt like doomsday to me. You know what I mean? Like I was just like, I was always good at like doing just enough to get by. I did just enough all the time to like pass my classes and go on to the next thing. You know.
When I think about what you were saying about the sense of possibilities, right? Like, and when I think about Cinema's Finest's role in that, I feel like when you would come to those meetings and you would talk to students, it was always in an encouraging way to tell people that if you want to do that, do it.
Just do it. Just
you know?
chase it.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because it's not like, and I know you and I both know this really well, that it's not like we didn't face those pressures. You're talking about them
100%.
now, right? Of choosing a career that makes sense, right? That is medicine or law or engineering or whatever. And so as we're sort of wrestling with those tensions within our community, within our families, we're still creating spaces of possibility, right? We're still creating 100%. Spaces like Cinema's Finest to talk to people and to make room for their passions, their talents, you know, and all of those things. So I guess I'm curious now, like, you know, as you were sort of reaching that end point in your collegiate years and you were preparing to sort of make a decision, what was that like? What was it like to have the conversation with your dad?
It was daunting. Well, the thing is, I was too scared to have the conversation with my dad, so I kept trying to buy myself time. I kept trying to buy myself time by I remember I was lucky because before I graduated, I was looking for a job. I was like, I need to find a job, and for me at that time, I was like, I would love to leave Flint. I didn't want to leave Michigan, but I was like, let me leave Flint. Let me go like an hour away from here, so I can have some breathing room, because I knew that if I stayed here, it was going to be like my dad in my ear every day, you know, asking me what I was doing. So I got lucky. One of my older sister's best friend, her name is Shurul Hassan, who I think you know Shurul. Shurul was working at the time in U of M Ann Arbor at a hospital. In like, I don't remember her official title, but she was doing like this public health research essentially. And she had gotten a master's. Like she was doing like, she had a real adult job, and you know what I'm saying? And I remember like reaching out to her and like asking her, because her brother had worked for her in this lab while he was in undergrad. He's like, yo, you should ask Shurul if there's a job. And I ended up calling her. Long story short, she got me a job there. I ended up staying at this job for 2 years in Ann Arbor. But that job was very much like in the saga of like trying to figure things out. That was very much like a cover for me in terms of like trying to like deflect, you know, the pressures that not really that I don't want to frame the story like my dad was like hounding me. Like my dad's a chill dude, you know what I mean? But I think he was just always concerned.
Worried, right?
You know what I mean? Like just worried, like what are you doing? How are you gonna do it? And that job for 2 years was like cover. You know, it was like, oh, like, you know, I'm gonna, you know, maybe I'll go to med school after this, maybe I'll apply. You know, it was like one of those things. And then like the third year of like this figuring things out, that was the hard year. Like there was a third year after undergrad, and in that year, I basically moved to Detroit with a friend, and that's where that year was crazy. That year was a lot of like touch and go and a lot of like I honestly had no idea what the fuck I was doing, but I was just in Detroit doing it. You know what I mean? Like I was like, I don't know. I guess I'm gonna figure it out. And then I would reach points that were very like, oh man, I might have, because I would look around and I'd be like, man, I got one friend I had friends who were going to, graduate school and medical school and law school and this and that, and folks, cats was getting married and having kids, like, and I'm sitting in this apartment in Detroit, like, man, it's empty. It's just me in here. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
And I don't have a real job. I don't have any real direction. And there were like definitely moments where I was just like, man, I might have fucked this up. You know what I mean? Like I might need to go back to Flint like hat in hand. You know what I mean? And try and like figure this thing out. And then, things worked out from there, thankfully. But
Okay, so you graduate from undergrad, then you moved to Detroit for a little bit, or you moved to Ann Arbor first.
moved to Ann Arbor, then moved to Detroit.
For a couple years, then you moved to Detroit, and then you get this interview with Hannah Beekler. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Hannah, man, God bless that lady. Hannah Beekler is, for people who don't know who she is a filmmaker and a production designer. And she is most famously known for her work alongside Ryan Coogler as his production designer. She's done all of his movies from Fruitvale Station to Sinners. And she's also done movies like Moonlight, production designer for Moonlight and Dark Waters, and she's done a lot of work with Beyonce. And she's fantastic. Like she's had a very strong run in her career. And she was also famously the first black person to be nominated for and to win the Academy Award for the category of production design. And she got it on the movie Black Panther in 2019. And I didn't know who Hannah was until that Academy Awards, because I remember, Black Panther was such a massive cultural phenomenon. And so when the Academy Awards came around, I never watched the awards really in any industry, but I remember wanting to watch that year because all of the Black Panther crew members were nominated. Music, production design, costumes. They were just, that movie was huge. And I remember watching, she won the award, and I was in Detroit, and I was like in like some Google, like I get into these like Google like wormholes where I'm like looking up the craziest, most random things. And I was looking up some sort of film thing. Maybe it was like something about Black Panther or about Ryan. I can't remember. But Hannah's name came up in the Google search, and I was like, oh man, I remember her. Like she won the Academy Award. I was like, I wonder what she's been up to. So I click on her name, and on her Google page, comes up like her Twitter link, and under her Twitter link, it's like her 3 most recent tweets are on her Google search, and one of the tweets says, hey, I'm coming to Detroit in January to work on a movie for 5 months, and I'm looking for a production assistant to help me.
Wow.
So I'm like, and I'm sitting on my couch in Detroit, like, I'm like, wait, what? So I don't even have a Twitter. I make a Twitter, and I DM her my resume, and to keep a long story short, like I eventually got an interview. She eventually hired me, and then I would go on to start this movie. The movie's called No Sudden Move. It's on HBO Max. You can watch it. It's directed by Steven Soderbergh, and she hired me as her PA on that movie. And we did like 3 months, and then we got hit by the pandemic. And so we all went home for, from like March, whatever it was, middle of March until I think we rebooted in August, our movie. So we came back, we finished the movie, and then towards the end of finishing No Sudden Move, she asked me if I wanted to come to Atlanta and do Black Panther 2. She's like, that's my next movie. She's like, I'd love for you to come. Like the only rub is you have to move to Atlanta. I'm like, great. Like I took the job, and then I went to Atlanta, and I worked with her in prep and production on that movie, which was very long. I mean, I was on it from like, with her, I was on that movie from like November of 2020 until March or April of 2022. So it was a long stretch. That movie was like incredibly long for many reasons. And after we wrapped the production of Black Panther 2 in Atlanta, basically Ryan's assistants at the time, D'Angelo Lewis and Zetra Evans, who are both good friends of mine, they were Ryan and his wife's assistants at the time, and they were getting promoted. And this was at the end of the shoot in Atlanta. And so basically, I got wind that they were getting promoted, and that I understood that he was going to need a new assistant. And so I just threw my name in the hat. Like I just I asked him straight up, and it was like, look, man, I know you're going to need a new assistant. Da da da. And then again, to keep a long story short, like I got an interview and I ended up getting the job, and then I moved to California, and then we finished Black Panther 2 in LA, like the post-production of it. And I've been with him since, yeah. So Hannah like got me, Hannah saved my life, absolutely, like saved my life. It was like a godsend. I don't know where she came from. But she came, she got me my first job, she got me my second job, and then that led to like the job I currently have. And so yeah, between her and Ryan is just, I'm eternally grateful to them both.
Well, I want us to back up a little bit.
Yeah, let's do
it. So this interview, you walked into this interview having only had the experience in.
I had no experience.
Oh, so no experience.
When I talked to Hannah, I had no experience. The only experience that I had at that point was like, I had worked with like my musician friends.
Okay.
And there was a filmmaker, there is a filmmaker, I should say, from Chicago. His name is Suhaib, Algerian guy. Still a good friend of mine till this day. I used to run around with him a lot, and I used to write music for his short films, and he had this like web series that he was working on. And so I would work with Suhaib a lot. And I would work with my other musician friends a lot. And that was the only experience I had. All that stuff was like, it was like we had no money, we were doing stuff for free. It was like they were not like major productions by any stretch. So I didn't have I'd never worked on a film set. I didn't know anything I had no knowledge.
So then what was it like walking into that interview?
I mean, it was a phone interview, and in all honesty, after the interview ended, I thought that like, it felt like an interview where, like I remember hanging up and being like, oh yeah, it felt like the interview was like she had picked somebody for the job already, but she already promised me she was gonna interview me.
Really?
So like, it felt like a formality because we didn't talk about like anything related to the job for like 35 minutes. It was like a 45-minute phone call, I remember. And I was like I remember I drove, it was a Friday, and I drove to some like parking lot in Hamtramck in Detroit. And I parked my car, and I just sat in my car and did this interview in a park. And like watching kids play and watching people play sports. And I'm just talking to her.
Why is that so on theme?
It's just, I had so much anxiety. I couldn't figure out where I should do the interview.
So you ended up just
I ended up just getting in my car. Like I love driving, so I just started driving around, and I eventually found like a parking spot, and I was like, I'm just gonna do it here.
No big deal, taking this interview with Oscar winner.
Yeah. And we had a nice conversation for 35 minutes that had nothing to do with anything. Yeah. That was the movie. And then in the last 5 minutes, she was like, so like the movie is, she starts going in and starts telling me about the movie. She's like, directed by Steven Soderbergh, these are some of the cast members. It would start, this is when the job would start, this is when it would end. The pay's not amazing, this is what they're gonna pay you. And she was like, she basically gave me the rundown of what the job is. And she was like, are you still interested? I was like, fuck yeah, like let's do it. She was like, cool. She was like, I'm interviewing other people. She was like, but I will call you on Monday. I remember it was Friday going into MLK weekend. Mm-hmm. She was like, I'll call you after the holiday on Tuesday. And like I said, because we didn't talk about work, like I imagined I was gonna get drilled about, like I was gonna get movie questions.
Right.
She didn't ask me any of that.
Wow.
We were just chatting, having a good time chatting. And then she called me like on that Tuesday, and she was like, yeah, like you got the job. And I was like,
Did you ever ask her?
Yeah, I don't know if I ever asked her directly, but I think like my theory, what's crazy? Actually, I did ask her, and she told me that when she saw my resume, she didn't want to interview me because I wasn't qualified for the job. She's like, I didn't think like, and the crazy thing is her son, Dominic, who was helping her like sift through resumes, and he was kind of her assistant at the time. And he was helping her go through resumes, and he was the one that recommended her to interview me. He was like, I know he doesn't have any like real experience, but he's got an interesting resume. Yeah. Like my resume was super weird because I had worked at all these weird places, and the spectrum was just very long. And Dominic was the one who told her to interview me. But if it wasn't for Dominic, she would never have called me to begin with.
So shout out to
That's
Dominic.
that's how little experience I had. Yeah, shout out to Dominic. Shout out to Dominic. Dominic is the one who got me the interview, basically.
Yeah.
And he was the one that thought my resume was, so my theory is that, like, look, man, like, the job is very demanding, and it requires you to, like, spend, you know, between 10 and up to, like, 16 hours a day with the same people for month after month after month. And I think the job of being a PA, like, I think the way she framed it was like, look, man, this is the person that I could tolerate the most for 15 hours a day. I think I think that's what my interview was.
Yeah.
Like, it was just like, it was purely vibes, because the job is not, mind you, I didn't know anything about film sets or how films are made. So when I showed up, I didn't know anything, and I had to learn it all on the fly. But I think in her head, she was like, you'll figure it out. And I think she just wanted somebody to hang out with.
Yeah.
You know, she wanted somebody that, like, when you're in the office some days at 10 o'clock at night and you're tired and you're frustrated and, you know, you have to get up the next morning at 5 o'clock and do it all over again. Like, you want people that are, like, I don't know, chill, cool, whatever. Like, and I think that was probably why she hired me.
You.
Would be my guess.
Yeah.
You know, I've never asked her directly why she hired me. I just remember cleaning out her, like, when the show wrapped in Detroit, I was, like, cleaning out her office, and I found this binder, and I opened up this binder because I was trying to figure out if I should throw things away or whatever, and I checked this binder, and it's full of resumes, and I'm, like, sifting through the resumes, and I see my resume comes up, and I realize, I'm like, oh, these are the resumes that these are the people that she was considering for the job. And I was looking through the resumes, and I'm like, man, shit, like, all these motherfuckers are way more qualified than me. You know, anybody could have got this job. Like, and that's when I was like, damn, I wonder why did she hire me?
Yeah.
And I think I asked her the question directly, and I don't know that she responded as to why she hired me, but she did tell me the piece about Dominic. She was like, I didn't even want to interview you.
Yeah.
She's like, my son is the only reason you got to interview. So shout out to Dominic. Yeah. What a journey, man. God bless Hannah.
Yeah.
She's the best.
Well, they made a great choice, right?
I mean, you know, you have to ask her. It was a lot of just a lot of ups and downs.
So
you know, the jobs usually are that way, but
yeah. So
yeah.
in this story now, you know, you finish up the job in Atlanta, and then you move to California.
Los Angeles,
you moved to
yeah.
Los Angeles,
Yeah.
and now working very closely with Ryan Coogler.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
so, you know, you did this movie Sinners most recently, but you were working on other projects before that too?
Yeah, officially I worked with him on, I did post-production of Black Panther 2 with him directly, which was probably the final 6 to 10 months of the movie, if you include, like, the press and the awards and all this stuff. So I had a stretch with him that was, and before me, he had my boy D'Angelo Lewis, who I mentioned earlier, and Zetra Evans were his assistants for, like, the big bulk of that movie, which was the writing, the preparation, and the photography. You know, they basically did the hard part of the movie for me. You know what I'm saying? And then I jumped in towards the end, basically, and, like, finished it off. It was still incredibly difficult, but, like, you know, that production was crazy. So I worked on that. And then on the side, we had projects that were happening while we were finishing Wakanda, which was, we had Creed 3, which was in post-production at the same time as Black Panther 2. We had this Steph Curry documentary titled Underrated. That's on Apple TV Plus. We were working on that at the same time. We had this documentary called Anthem, which is on Hulu. That was happening at the same time. And those were all things that Ryan was working as a producer on. You know, he wasn't directing or writing any of those. And so we worked on those, and, you know, he is one of the 3 founders of a production company called Proximity Media. And Proximity has, like, it has, like, 3 divisions: an audio division, a film division, and a TV division. And each one of those departments has several projects going on, and he is a producer on all of those things. So on top of him making movies the way he does, he has that whole world going on. And so it's kind of like a combination. It's hard to explain, but it's a combination of a lot of things. Like, he has his hands in a lot of things.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah.
So when was the first time you found yourself on the set of one of these like big films?
Big films. It was no sudden move. It was in Detroit.
Okay.
Yeah, it was Steven Soderbergh, and the cast was like, who was on that cast? It was like Benicio del Toro, Don Cheadle, Kieran Culkin, Julia Fox was in that movie. Ray Liotta, rest in peace, was in that movie.
Wow.
Trying to think, there's other names. David Harbour was in that movie. Who else? It was like an all-star cast. There were so many great actors and actresses in that film. And that was the first time for me. That was my first movie, first time being on a set, first time understanding. The crazy thing is I just had lunch with a homie named Steve right before I came here. And Steve was one of the first people I met on that movie.
Really?
In Detroit. And he was like the guy who like, he saw me and he knew that I knew nothing. And him and our other friend, Mike Oak, they basically like took me under their wing and like, they're like, this is crafty, and this is call sheet, and this is, they like took my hand and like walked me through it. Them, and then also our coordinator, our department coordinator, Deb Jervis. They like those three kind of just like held my hands and were like, this is this, and because I knew nothing, absolutely nothing. So I was with them, and that was the first set. That was my first like time on like a real, feature film, like studio movie.
Which is arguably a big film too.
It was, like, it was. I mean, it was like I don't know the exact budget, but if I had to guess, it was probably like a $40-50 million movie.
And then to go from there, then to Black Panther.
Then to Black Panther, which was just massive, like as big as a movie can get, basically.
Yeah.
In terms of like the making of it, and then Sinners was the next thing that took up like a lot of time for me, and I would say that was like. I mean, that movie was difficult to make because we were on a very tight timeline, and Ryan is like, I think one of the great things about him is he's like an extremely ambitious person. Like in his mind, nothing is impossible, and I love that about. Like I love working around that energy. And so Sinners was hard because the ask was very like demanding with the amount of time and money that we had, as opposed to a Panther where we. That movie was hard for a million reasons, but we had a lot more time and a lot more money, and it was still extremely difficult. Whereas this movie was like less money, less time, and it's just a different type of difficulty.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we always manage to get them done, but they're always like.
So they're
always a journey.
You were jumping from like big set to bigger set.
Big set to massive set, and then Sinners was like, Sinners was still very much like, if Wakanda had just had so many like people,
right?
And the days were so, like everything was just magnified on that movie. Yeah. Like we'd have 300 people on set, maybe more on any given day when we were making that movie, and like Sinners, I would say we probably had on an average day like, I don't know, 100 people on set. If I had to guess, like off the top of my head. So yeah, the scales were just different, And I would say No Sudden Move was even smaller than Sinners was.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, like in terms of like the scale and the budget, it was probably a hair smaller than Sinners was. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was a little bit of bouncing around, but now I feel like I've seen. Really, the thing that I haven't done that I'm interested in doing is like I haven't done like an indie movie, like something that's under $5 or $10 million or whatever.
Yeah.
That, I've never done one of those. And the funny thing is, a lot of my favorite movies fall in that category of like super indie. Like they talk about having no money and just kind of like stitching the movie together to like Moonlight, Fruitvale Station. Like those are two movies that massive influences on like my life, and both of those movies like combined was probably made for less than $5 million. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I do want to work on one of those someday. Yeah.
I'm curious, as someone who, you've described having an appreciation for film for a long time, mm-hmm. and then now you're working behind the scenes, you're working on these big sets, you're working with these brilliant minds in the industry, right? What does it feel like to be behind the scenes? Like has your appreciation for film increased? Has it changed? Do you feel like you watch movies differently? Maybe even if there's an experience you've had watching like the film in its final form after having worked on it for so long.
Yeah, it's changed. I mean, like I still love movies the way I always loved movies. Like that hasn't changed, and I don't like. There's a lot of not a lot, but like I run into people in the film industry sometimes who will tell me that they don't watch movies because like there's just like emotionally there's too much there because they've done so many of them and they know how it goes down behind the scenes and all that stuff. They're just not capable of watching movies anymore. They don't. It's
you
not
hear
their
that
thing.
a lot, yeah.
That's not me. Like I still watch movies. I still like to go to movies not knowing anything about a movie and just coming in like any other audience member, like and falling for all the tricks and you know what I mean. Like I like to pretend. Sometimes I like to pretend I don't know anything about movies and just watch them.
Do you feel like you have more of a critical lens now, though?
Like I think when I want to, I do. You know what I mean? Like I have an issue with I rewatch a lot. I rewatch the same movies and TV shows over and over again, and I find myself now watching with a more I don't want to say critical, but like it's more like I'm studying them in a different way.
Right.
Like
okay.
Sometimes I will watch movies for very specific things and everything else I can tune out from the movie. But if I'm watching it trying to like see how a specific actor performs, or I'm trying to pay attention to the cinematography, for example, or trying to figure out how they pace the movie or whatever, those are all different things. So I can watch one movie and watch it for 4 different reasons and have 4 different experiences watching it. Every time I'm watching it, it's usually with like, if I'm rewatching it, it's either casually in the background because I'm like doing laundry or I'm cleaning and I just want a movie that I've seen before that I don't need to pay attention to. Or it's like, okay, why is everybody saying that this cinematography in this movie is so good? Or why is everybody talking about this actor performance? Or why, you know, like, and then I'll go watch a movie with that lens where I'm just focused on like one really like specific thing. So it has changed. And because I know like some of the tricks now that they do to like make these movies happen and like certain scenes are shot a certain way and just all of this, I mean, it's a wealth of knowledge, man, like that I've gotten like working with Hannah and Ryan specifically, but also like working with their crews. And it makes you watch movies and wonder and be like, oh man, like, you know, you used to watch these movies and be like, oh, that's so crazy. But then sometimes I like lean in and I'm like, oh man, like you can kind of notice what's happening. You know what I mean? You can notice certain things. Like I can pick up on things that I didn't used to pick up on. Yeah. That I would have like once not noticed. And
so you still have that wonderment watching
100%, 100%. And the other piece is like listening to. This is one of the most fun parts of like making movies for me is like you're surrounded by like these crew members and these department heads who are, you know, all have like experience in the film industry for a long time. People like Ruth Carter, who's a famous costume designer, and Hannah, who we mentioned, and Autumn Durald Arkapaw, who is Ryan's DP for the last 2 films he did, and his editor Mike Shaver, and all these people. His composer Ludwig Göransson, who's like, you know, it feels like he's been doing this for 60 years, and he's like, I don't even know if he's 40 years old yet. Amazing composer. Like I get to just sitting and picking their brains and listening to them talk about their favorite movies is always very interesting, because the way that they're synthesizing things is just different than I'm gonna do it. Yeah. You know, so it's like listening to them talk about it is always fun, because I always go back and I'm like, dang, like I didn't even notice that. I didn't even think about this. And then I go home and I watch it and I'm like, man, he's right. You know what I'm saying? Like he's 100% right or whatever. So yeah, that part is so fun to me. Like I love listening to people talk about, like I love being on set or in the post-production offices and just listening to like people talk about their favorite movies and what makes it their favorite movie and why they love this scene. And because all that stuff, the crazy thing is all these people are taking those influences and they're putting those things into the movies that we're making. You know, like nothing, the one thing that I realized about movies is nothing on the screen shows up on accident. It's all intentional. Very rarely is something like, you know, you show up into a movie theater and the filmmaker's like, man, I have no idea how I got in there. Like, it's all talked about, it's all thought out, it's all planned for. And all of those things are pulled from these filmmakers who are influenced by these movies that came before them. And so I find that part very interesting. Like what people are watching. I think there's a quote by D'Angelo, who's the R&B artist D'Angelo. And I think he said, somebody gave him the advice. They said, don't study the people, not don't study, but like what's more important to study is not the people that influence you, but like the people that influence them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I always think about that quote, like when I'm hanging around, like, you know, all these awesome filmmakers, like, I just try to pick their brains. Like, what are your favorite movies? What did you watch growing up?
Yeah.
What do you put in your work? What
Yeah.
influences you? And so you always get really interesting stuff out of that. Yeah.
I for one love hearing that because
Yeah.
you know I feel like you know with Cinema's Finest when we're sitting in this room we were talking about the movies and
100%.
we were you know thinking to ourselves, this is what the director was thinking here, this is why this scene was the way that it was.
I love that about as Cinema's Finest turned into that. It was like my favorite. Like I used to love just even the slideshows you would make that we would go through before the movies. Like I used to love it because it had all of like the relevant information for the movie. It like set the stage, and then you would go and be like, dang, like, you know, like even just hearing like the stories of how like the context of how like some of these movies were made, and it was I love that stuff.
Right, but we would make a lot of assumptions, right? We're not sitting in the room with the director, right?
Yeah.
And now you get to do that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. No, it's great.
And I think there's just like something so like powerful about that, and also just like as someone who you've always loved film, you've loved storytelling, right?
Yeah.
Like now you have a window into what these directors are thinking about.
100%.
And you get to see that things are intentional, right? And they're made a specific way and all these things.
Yeah.
Do you still, like, I guess when you're thinking about your fondness for the filmmaking experience, what part of it is the most attractive thing to you? Is it the storytelling? Is it the cinematography? Like, what is the part that draws you in the most now having experienced both sides of it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know that I think for me, the thing that I love about movies and the thing that I always loved about them is, to me, like I would say that my first true love in the arts was music. Like that was the thing that I fell in love with. Like my mom till this day is a music head. And that was the first thing that I ever remember enjoying. I couldn't tell you the first movie I watched, but I can tell you a lot of the early music I was listening to from when I was a young kid. But the thing that I realized about movies as I got older was like, this is the most, in terms of like the arts, this is the most expressive medium that I've seen out of anything. Like, if you like clothes, there's a costume designer that's making clothes for the movie, for the characters. If you like architecture, there's a production designer who's building sets. If you like painting, you can put paintings in the set. You can have the painting in a shot. There's a shot in the movie Malcolm X. Oh my God! Every time I think about it, it's a shot of Denzel Washington, and he's playing Malcolm X, and he's at a podium, giving a speech like what feels like a million people, and behind him is like this massive painting of Elijah Muhammad, and like Malcolm is like at the podium, and he's speaking with all the confidence in the world, and he's like preaching to the people, and in this painting behind him, it just has Elijah Muhammad just like staring down at him, and it's like the most menacing shot I've ever seen in like film. Every time I see it, I'm like, this shit is crazy. Like Spike and Ernest are out of their minds for this shot and this painting, the whole thing. But like that to me is like an example of just like pure expression. Like you can do so many. There's music in movies. There's score. There's soundtracks.
Right.
There's acting. There's writing. Like I just feel like you can squeeze so much into a movie, and that you can't with any other art form. And until this day, I maintain that, and that will always keep me wanting to make movies. Yeah. Is that like it's just there's too much expression that can be, and that's why like the other thing that you realize is, there's directors, there's writers, and there's sometimes writer directors, but you realize how much of the movie is made like outside of their hands, in the hands of their collaborators, because like it's an insane amount of work. The director is obviously like, staying on top of everything and giving direction on what they want on specific things in the production design, in the costumes, in the music, in the editing. They give their direction, but in the end of the day, like these department heads are really like, they're the ones who come and take this idea and like bring it to life. Yeah. In a sense, you know what I mean? With all their different forms of expression, and like it's a beautiful thing, and I just love that about it. I love how expressive it is. Like if you got like the 5 or 10 main department heads of our movie in here, and just let them talk, like you would be fascinated.
Right.
Be fascinated by like all the things that they threw into the movie from their own influences and how all those things make the movie what they are. It's crazy. It's nuts.
I mean, I think that's a realization a lot of people had when we would talk about the films during Cinema's Finest, is that
Absolutely.
people thought, oh, it's just the director.
It's just a
or
director,
it's just
yeah.
the producer, right? And then when you would talk about the movies and you talk about all the components that make
Oh
the
my
film,
God.
they're like, oh, this is very collaborative at its core, right?
has to
There's
be.
so many people
It has to be,
involved
yeah.
in telling the story in such a meaningful way.
These movies are so fucking hard to make. Like you cannot do it without like collaboration across the board.
Yeah.
Like you need you usually need more people than you have,
Yeah.
which is the crazy part, because we already have so many people on the set and we have so many people in post-production and in prep, and still it always feels like, man, we could use more people.
Yeah.
Like we could use more help, you know?
Right.
That's the wild part about it. It's an intense collaboration between a lot of people that come from all different parts of the world and walks of life and have different influences, and it makes for very interesting movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as someone who like you said, you really love music. That was your first love, right? In terms of the arts.
For sure.
Do you feel like that's a next step for you, that you would want
Music?
to do more in music, like within film? I mean, like within the industry.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm not sure. Like, I'm not sure that I've thought about it like that far out. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure, like in the film space, how much like music I would do, but I mean, I love it. I enjoy it. Like watching Ludwig work is like one of my favorite parts of anything I've ever done.
Really?
He's just a genius.
Yeah.
He's a genius, and like, yeah, some of the stuff he did on his movie Sinners is like, that shit is just mind-boggling. Yeah, he's so good.
Do you look at the way he does his work and think that maybe you would want to be a part of it one day, or is it just not something you?
I guess I don't always think like that far in advance. I don't know. Like when I see him work, I'm just enjoying it.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not really like, I'm not plotting on anything, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. Like I just love music. It's truly like the first thing I loved, and maybe down the road there will be like, opportunities for me to like work in music within the film business. I would love to do it. My goal is to write and direct movies, but if there's a way to like, add my own touch of music on it, that'd be awesome. Yeah.
So the goal is to write and direct.
The goal is to write and direct. Yeah, of course.
That's exciting.
Yeah. One day we'll get there.
Yeah. So I guess and what is the next step in this saga as you described it? You just wrapped up
next step,
Sinners. What's next now?
What's next is, we have a television show that we're gonna do that I think I'm allowed to talk about. It's this famous show called X-Files. And we're doing a reboot of X-Files. Ryan's doing like his, kind of his take on X-Files, and that's the next thing we're doing. But eventually, the goal for me is, go make your own movie. You know what I mean? Go make your own thing. I have some short films that I'm going to make this year, and then I have this, I have this one script idea that I've been working on for a long time. It's like based in Flint and has to do with Flint, and without getting into like any crazy details, that's like the thing that I am working on. I guess in the background of like my day job all the time.
So you really already are in the process of kind of experimenting. With filming. And
I'm in the process of making stuff, but because I have a job that's like very demanding, it's you're only going to be able to make so much when you can only write and work on your stuff after hours. It's tough. You come home, you're tired. You don't work a long day and you got to get up the next day and do it again, but you have to find time, and it's usually not a lot of time, but you have to find time to work on your stuff. You do what you can with the time that you have,
Yeah.
Yeah, you take your weekends are very important. Your time after work is very important, and then if you take vacation, you know what I'm saying? If you need to take time off to work on stuff, you do that, but it's obviously it's tougher to do in this scenario, but you just figure it out.
Well, and it's a tough industry in general, right?
Very, very tough.
Do you find that you'll have the support you need when that time comes for you to transition away?
Yeah, I think like I'm not worried about the support piece of it at all. Like look, man, I have heard all types of stories about this film industry and entertainment business and nightmare scenarios.
Right.
You know, like people that I work with, like, oh, when I started, I was at this place and this happened, and I'm like, yo, what the fuck? Like, because I worked with Hannah and Ryan, and they both they treat me like family. I feel very protected with them. I'm never in a situation where I'm like, oh man, this person might fuck me over. You know what I'm saying? Or they might ask me to do something that's like gonna make me uncomfortable. I've never had that like scenario with them. Like Hannah very much looked at, like me and Hannah, her son is like, I don't know, maybe a few years younger than me, Dominic. And so she very much looked at me as a son. Like when I came to work with her, it was always like that. Like she protected me like a mother would protect her child. You know what I mean? And with Ryan is he's I think 8 years older than I am. So it's more of it feels like more like a big brother type of thing.
Yeah.
You know, like he looks out for me in that sense. Whereas like, he pushes me, he challenges me because that's what I think because he's also an older brother he has two younger brothers, Keenan and Noah. And so I think my relationship with him is more that, and he like pushes me in ways that you would push a younger brother, but also like, you can't fuck with anybody's younger brother or it's a problem. You know what I mean? And so I think like I definitely feel that protection in that sense. So I feel like the support will absolutely be there, man. Like I'm not worried about that part. I think it's just, look, man, a lot of people want to do the job. A lot of people want to be directors, writers. A lot of people want to make movies. I'm not the only one, you know what I mean? And you just have to like study the craft and hope that like what you make people feel, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or it makes sense to people, or they want to watch your next thing or whatever the case is. And that part I don't think about much because I don't think I have a lot of control over that. But I have, I've met a lot of great people, and I have a lot of like great resources at my disposal, and hopefully that turns into something. We'll see.
For sure.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Yeah.
Well, and this last but a little bit, I want to bring it back to Flint.
Let's do it.
And
all day.
And to community. And thinking about a lot of the folks that we know that we're in spaces with together that maybe are looking for the motivation to pursue careers like the ones that you know like the one that you've pursued, and are eager to know that that there are possibilities for them. Very recently, you were invited to speak at Carmen, right?
Oh, yeah. I spoke to my old senior English teacher, Jessica Matthews. I spoke to her AP African American Studies class.
Yeah. So even just thinking about what it means for you to even be welcomed back to your old
it feels
great. High school, and like speaking to students about this film Sinners and the work that you do, and I guess what was that like? What was that experience like?
It's awesome. I did it for them. I want to say when Wakanda came out, I came and did something similar. For at the time, I think Miss Mattern, who was my 11th grade English teacher, was still there, and we did some sort of collaboration thing. And I spoke to a bunch of kids in the library, I remember. But it feels good. It feels. I mean, I love a lot of my teachers. Like, I was not a great student, like academically, but my teachers always liked me. Like they knew I wasn't like there to like cause trouble. I just had a hard time focusing, you know what I mean? And I hated like just doing schoolwork. I hated homework, but I loved, again, just like I said, I loved the social setting of Flint. It's the same thing in like high school. It was like I loved going to it. I loved being there. I loved hanging out with the people, but I just didn't care much for the academic part of it, And I think that for the most part, my teachers, like, they knew that like I had no bad intentions about being in their classroom. You know what I mean? And yeah, they took care of me. They took care of me a lot. Like Miss Matthews and Miss Mattern and my coach and teacher, my soccer coach Jay Witham. They always ask me to come back. They're always like, yeah, come say hi to the kids. Come say what's up. So it feels good. It feels good to like be welcomed back.
What kind of questions are you getting from the kids?
I'm trying to remember. I don't know, with this movie, they asked all types of like questions. They were asking a lot about like the meaning of the movie and, a lot of questions about like, how did you guys do the twin stuff with Michael B? Like, how were you, so there was a lot of like technical questions and clarifications that they wanted. And then you get some kids who are like, like how did you get here? What is your story?
Yeah.
Or like, how do you, so it's like a range of questions. It's a range of questions, but yeah, they were fun, man. It was a small class. It was probably like 15 of them, maybe 20. They were fun, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, to bring it back to that initial question about how you got here, right?
Yeah.
And your story, I guess. What would your message be to them, or what was your message to them when you were in the classroom with them?
I think it was like, I don't know. I have a hard time with like the advice question, because I don't like the only advice that I can give, the only thing that I can say about like the one common denominator from what I've seen in my time in the film industry is anybody that has a career doing it, they all work incredibly hard. So it's like hard work is like a common denominator. Like you're just going to have to do that part. And then the other piece is like study your craft and like find out what you love about it and why you want to do it, and figure out kind of like try to figure out what success means for you. You know what I mean? And then just chase after it like as best you can. You know what I mean? And talk to as many people as talk to everybody. Like that's always my advice. Talk to everybody. Be nice to everybody, because you never know who's who, or like where they might be heading. And just be curious and be open and yeah, like study the craft, like understand it, fall in love with it, like know as much as you can about it, so that if an opportunity presents itself, you don't gotta like get ready. You kind of already.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So that would be my advice, like on a broad scale, right? Like just work hard, study your craft, and like this thing works out differently for a lot of people. Like I think if you spend time like around film folks, in any city, the way people get to where they are is so fascinating to me, because it's very rarely this straightforward thing where like, yeah, I went to film school and I wanted to do this and now I'm doing this, right? You hear that story, obviously, from time to time, but the way people end up in their jobs is always so strange on film sets. It's like, oh yeah, I was working at some library, and I ran into this guy who knew this guy, and then he needed somebody to work on a set, and all of a sudden now they've been a grip or a gaffer for 20 years, or like whatever it is. Like people's ways of getting on, and like I'm not excluded from that. Like I have a very strange story. When I tell people how I got started, when I'm meeting new people in the film industry, my story is always like a head scratcher for people. It's like, damn, what? Like that's crazy. It's just because it's a lot of good fortune. Like I work very hard, but so does everybody else that I work with, right? And they're all very demanding, but like my story is filled with good fortune, and so it's very hard for me to sometimes like advise people on like, based off of where I'm at and like how I got to where I got. I'm like, man, so a lot of times I look back and I'm just like, bro, I got extremely lucky. Like God just put some very incredibly kind people in my life, who happen to also be very talented and happen to like work in the things that I want to do, and here we are. You know what I mean? Yeah. But so yeah, that's like my mixed bag of advice.
I mean, I would even push back a little and say that I think, sure, good luck is a big part of it.
Yeah,
but
big time.
But I also think that you've now been in, have continued to be in this role now, working closely with Ryan Coogler and others. Like that has to be, for me, a testament to just the work that you do, a testament to the authenticity that you bring to the job, to the role, and even just the eye that you have for this craft, right, and appreciation that you have for it. I think all of that, I'm sure, is a big part of why these folks are inspired by you and inspired by what you bring to the table. So
I appreciate you saying that. It's very nice. I don't necessarily like disagree totally, but there is like, from my standpoint, there is like that the factor of like just good fortune. I don't know. Maybe it's like maybe I use it as like a defense mechanism or like a shield, but like I cannot help, like when I talk about these things, I don't talk about these things a lot. I don't get asked about them a ton, but when I do talk about it, I just can't help but think about like, holy shit, like how lucky I had gotten at so many points. And if I had the time to like really get into like the weeds with you, like the weeds of like some of these stories, it's like some of it is just head scratching. I'm just like, man, there's nothing I could have done to like for this to have happened. It just happened, you know? And I try to give myself credit where I feel like I deserve the credit, but it's hard to not think about like the good fortune of it and some of the coincidences, and you know, but I do also subscribe to like the idea that like everything happens for a reason. You know, I don't think any of it was necessarily on accident, but there was a lot of it that was out of my control, I'll say. And yeah, that part is always interesting. Yeah, to like reflect on.
You know, and I'm sure you're aware because I think you did come to a couple of our events, but the Arab American Heritage Council has been working on our MENA Artist Showcase now. This is our 4th year. We just wrapped up our 4th event. And it really is an opportunity to bring young artists and creatives together.
You guys did it at Kama again?
No, this year we did it at the Flint Institute of Arts.
Okay.
Yeah,
nice.
and so and part of the reason for that is because every year we get more and more artists who register.
Yeah, and you need more space.
And we need more space. Yeah. And I think that creating this opportunity for people to come together in this way is proving to be just such an incredible opportunity for them.
Yes.
Because people come back and they love to talk about their work, they love to talk about their stories, and they love the questions that they get, right?
I always say you gotta see it to believe it. Like, and I think that piece of it is so important. Like having somebody show up to an event and, you know, there's maybe some kid or some adult or some person who just hasn't met anybody that does what they want to do, and all of a sudden here they are sitting in front of them. Right. And the idea of seeing that is like, it does something to your brain. I used to, when I was in my late teens and early 20s, and this is the last piece of rambling I'll do for you guys, because I've been rambling left and right. But when I was in my late teens and 20s, early 20s, there was a guy whose name is El Khair Bella. He also goes by Elk, and he grew up here for the most part in East Lansing. And his dad is like an OG Sudanese cat in the community. And he was like my oldest sister, he was around her age, maybe a little bit older than her. And when I was like in my late teens and early 20s, so my oldest sister passed away in 2012. I was probably 17 when it happened. And El Khair knew her, he was friends with her. And so sometime after I connected with him, and he was like, yo man, if you ever want to come out to New York, you know, like you should pull up. Like I got a spot in Harlem. You can always come crash on my couch. Like, and I had never been in New York. I'd never, you know, so I was like, yeah, fuck it, I'll pull up. And I would go visit him in New York. And that was like, for me, those days that I would spend in New York was like the beginning, what felt like the beginning of everything. Because I would go there and I would meet people. And specifically, I got a chance to meet these 4 brothers, Sudanese brothers, who are all like, bro, they're so fucking interesting. One is, his name is Ibrahim. Their last name is Hamad brothers. And Ibrahim, also known as Ib, is J. Cole's manager, and like one of the heads of Dreamville Records. His brother Abbas, also known as Boss, is a famous rapper and musician. And then they have another brother named Moma, who's a DJ. And when I met him, he was actually an engineer by trade. he had an engineering job during the daytime and he would DJ at night. And now he like runs this amazing there's like this party called Everyday People that travels around the world, and he runs that shit. He DJs there. He's like, I think he's one of the co-founders. And then lastly, Proof, my homie Proof, aka Ahmed, aka Proof. He's like a Swiss Army knife. Like he raps, he manages,
everything.
He does it all, right? He does it all. And those four brothers, had I not met those guys in New York in like my late teens and early 20s, I don't know that I ever would have had the stamina to like pursue this thing, because that was the first time I saw it. I was like, oh damn, like these dudes are Sudanese and they talk like me, and their parents talk like my parents. I met their parents and I was like, huh, and they're all like doing like interesting things. And that was the first time in my life that like I was like, oh shit, like, man, maybe I can pursue this thing. And I would ask them questions when I would hang out with them. I'd be like, man, what did you guys' parents think? Like, what did you guys, when you guys were first doing it? And they would give me all these stories and they would give me all this advice. But like, I don't, like, if it was not for Al Khair, like exposing me to that world and introducing me to those brothers, shit, I don't know if I'm like doing any of this. You know what I mean? That was the first time I was like, oh, like I'm gonna figure something out. Like these guys were, they did it and they're all like having a good time and they're happy and they're close and they're doing all these amazing things. I'm like, man, I gotta figure some shit out, you know? So I do think there's a high level of importance to like meeting people that are doing it, kind of like that come from the background you come from to some extent.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It makes a world's difference.
I think that's exactly why we see so much success with the MENA Artist Showcase. It's because it has proven to be something that is so inspiring to everyone.
Oh
it's
my God.
The artists, the attendees, right? Like we're all learning from each other. And I think especially for the artists who are from Flint, a lot of the comments that I get after the event is over is, I've never been to an event like this in Flint.
I had never been to an event like that in Flint until I went to your event at Kama, and I was like, oh, like I've been in Flint my whole fucking life.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And then
I'd never seen anything like that.
And you see like our members of our community who we grew up with, who possess so much talent, so much skill.
And you have no idea.
And you had no idea.
You have no
right?
idea. Yeah, this person can draw, this person can sing, this person can play an instrument, like and you don't know anything about it.
Yeah, and what a beautiful thing to bring this group together and to just see the collaboration that has come out of it ever since, right? Like this past one we did. Omar Al-Noor and Adam did a collaboration where we had like, and I don't know if you know Siraj, like he filmed one of our protests in Flint for Palestine. And so we got a bunch of footage from him. Omar put it all together, and then Adam had his music over it. And so we screened that.
Omar Noor is boy, I could sit here and do 30 minutes on him.
So much talent.
He's incredible.
Yeah.
He's a genius. Like his brain just works different. You know what I mean? I know he's running around like doing a bunch of stuff, but man,
he's doing some big stuff now too. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope he stays in the world in the arts, because like he's gifted. Like,
right.
You know what I mean? Like he has something that you can't teach. You know?
And I want there to be more of a sense of motivation and inspiration that's coming from here, from Flint, from our community, right?
Absolutely.
And I think that oftentimes we don't always think as our parents' generation don't always think of the arts as being a successful career.
My dad asked me yesterday or 2 days ago. I was in the car with him. He was like, "Yes." He's like, "So," he was like, "You like your job?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "You think you're gonna do this for the rest of your life?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Yeah." Like, I think he like still has this like holding on to some sort of like sliver that like, maybe this is just like a phase of my life. You know what I mean? Because they don't know anyone that's done it. They like in my current boss Ryan, he has a great quote. He did this like directors roundtable, and he has this quote in the interview. He says what you don't know you're afraid of, and like I realized like that's like my parents and a lot of people's parents here is like, in communities across the world. It's just like they're afraid of it because they don't know anything about it.
But I think we're even changing their perspective.
Oh, 100%.
On it. And I think the showcase does that. I think your work does that, right?
Big time.
And I think also, like, you know, you talked about your mom listening to music and how much she loves music. I think sometimes they don't even realize that, like, what they love about it is what we're trying to create with this art,
they have no idea.
Like, like, it's just thinking about what you said about how that sort of informed your love and appreciation for music. Seeing your mom be so excited about the music she's listening to. It was the same experience I had when I took my mom for the first time to see the National Arab Orchestra when they came to Flint. I had never seen her get so excited about music in my life. She's always the person that's turning the music down in the car. And for the first time, she was out of her seat. She was lit up. Yeah, she lit up. 100%. And for me, that was motivating. You know, that was inspiring to me. And so I think the showcase helps to prove that in another way, and in a way that maybe helps them understand that it is storytelling. Right, in a lot of ways, that's what that's what your kids are doing, is they're telling stories. So.
Yeah, I mean, we're all storytellers, man. I come home on these like vacations. I come home to Flint like every time, and you know, I go back to like California. And people are like, oh yeah, like you know, what did you do during the break? And I'm like I spend like 70% of my break hanging out with my childhood friends. You know, just telling stories, telling the same old fucking stories that we've been telling, and telling now new stories about what's happening in people's lives. And like everyone that I hang out with is a storyteller. Like that's what we like to do. We like to sit around and play cards or play whatever, and we just talk. We tell stories. We give opinions. That's our thing. You know, we're a very like oral people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's like my favorite thing about coming home is that piece. Like everybody's a storyteller.
Yeah.
You know, like I go home, my parents, they're giving me, you know, the last 6 months of stories that I missed. Yeah. You know what I mean?
In great detail.
In great detail. Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
And like that's how it goes. But you know, it's like, man, God bless you for the work, man, for putting the showcases together and for staying here. You know, that like I think there is a part of me that like, you know, because places change so rapidly. And every time I come to Flint, there's like, something's different. Something's like, oh, this place is gone, or this place just opened up, or this person moved, or that. And you get all these things that like shift the energy a little bit every time I come home. And there is a part of me that like, I don't want to say feels like guilty, but there's a part of me that is always like, man, I would love to just be back here and like, do what I'm doing here. You know what I mean? And being with like my people all the time, and engaging with like the community, and you know, and I think I'll get there. Yeah,
it sounds like you got a project in the works.
It might take some time, but you know, God willing, I'm gonna get back. But I always appreciate that about you, that you stayed, and you know, like the work you do is hard, man. It's hard work. Like it's not. There's nothing about it that's pretty until it's happening. You know what I mean? Like until everybody's in the room and they're at the showcase or at any event and they're having a good time. Like everything before that is just, I already know. I don't even have to ask you. I know how stressful it is.
Oh, absolutely.
And how anxiety inducing it is, and how like, you know, how little resources people generally have to like make these things happen. And so yeah, man, like shout out to you. You know, you've been trying to do this. You've been doing this shit since we was in college. Yeah. You know, you've been trying to like figure out ways to like get people together, and you know, like your love for movie making it was like something I'd never seen when we started Cinema's Finest. Like I was like, man, she's on it. You know?
But I mean, I have to say, like, you know, I tell this story about you because it was such a pivotal part of my experience, right? To know that someone believed not just in me, but in the idea.
Yeah, the idea is beautiful. I loved it.
And I think that meant a lot to me, and it's something that, you know, I always say in my work, we don't achieve anything alone. You talk about that all the time, right? With your filming. We never achieve anything alone. I think that has been so important for me to recognize in this job and in this work, is that it is collaborative, and we're all in this together, and we're all 100%. And there's so many people that are giving so much of their time and their energy to make this happen, and to put us on a different path to building a better world, right? And to imagining new possibilities, as you described. So
100%. All of that is like relevant and important. And yeah, I'm glad to like be back here. I'm glad to like to be having this conversation and be in this room, and you know, to still be like 10 years, 12 years later, like however long it's been, still both like doing this work and like it growing. You know what I mean? It's very easy to like flame out of things, to like work, be like, oh, I want to do something. And then, life does what it does. And sometimes people have to just stop what they're doing. It's like, oh man, I couldn't do this anymore because such and such happened to me, or such and such happened to my family, or I didn't have time for it anymore, or it wasn't working out. And so like, the fact that we both here still doing things that are like important to us is like, that part's just a blessing.
Yeah,
blessing,
100%.
big blessing.
I guess I'll wrap us up on this point.
Yeah.
I want to bring us to something you said once about Cinema's Finest. I had interviewed you for my independent study.
Okay,
this was
I
a few
remember
years
this.
ago.
Yeah, I remember
and,
this. Did we do that on Zoom or something?
We did do it on Zoom,
I remember.
And I went back to find it for this interview because I think it captures, I think, the heart of what we were trying to build back then, and even what we're still trying to build right now. And you said this. You said, I always felt most connected to the youth empowerment piece. Inspiring and empowering young people is how we change the world. I think those Friday evenings that many thought might just be movie nights, we were actually creating the next generation of leaders. It certainly has inspired me to take on leadership roles and attempt to create a better world.
Damn, did I say that?
You did.
That's goddamn eloquent.
And so, hearing that now and reflecting on your journey, what message, I guess, do you want to leave us all with today?
Man, keep going. That's like the only like thing that's the thing that I tell myself all the time, is just like, keep going, man. There's so many angles to like look at these things and analyze them, but like the only advice that I can give anybody is just keep going. Like whatever it is that like makes you either drives you, gives you inspiration, or makes you happy, just keep going. Take it and run.
Take it and run.
Take it and run. Yeah, like and the other piece that I've realized is like I tend to have like a very passive personality sometimes. Like I like to just let shit kind of slide, and I'm like, oh, nothing's a big deal, and blah, blah. But like, I guess the other message that I will leave people with is like, whatever you want, like, you gotta fucking take it. You know what I mean? Nobody's gonna give you, not that nobody's gonna give you anything. People will give you things, people will help you along the way, but in the grand scheme, like, if there's something you want, you have to put yourself in a position to just take it. And that is one of like the biggest lessons I've learned. You can't like, you sit around and wait, man. There's 100 other people in line that they're gonna be like, yo, it's a hold up. Like, either get out the line or get what you need. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, just whatever it is you want, like, try and take it. Try and make it yours.
This is the advice you gave me in 2015, and still
Yeah,
advice
just
I
keep
think
going,
about
man.
today.
Just keep going. 100%. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ammar. Any final words?
I'm grateful for all of this, being here and being asked to do this, and yeah.
Thank you for giving us your time.
Very emotional. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.